First, if this is true, does it mean President Trump committed a crime?
It means he committed 3 crimes, Steph. He committed not only subornation of perjury, subornation, fancy word, lots of syllables. It just means you encouraged someone, you enticed them, you told them to lie under oath. Crime number 1. Crime number 2, obstruction of justice. Why? Because the lie was designed to limit the investigation into Trump-Russia connections, according to the reporting. Crime number 3, conspiracy to commit those 2 crimes, perjury and obstruction. There's 3 felony offenses right there. And I'm telling you, Steph, I'm sitting 12 blocks from the White House, and I can almost smell the gun smoke.
Not a good smell. All right, Congressman, how does this set the stage for February 7th, when Michael Cohen is set to testify before Congress?
Well, obviously, it raises the stakes. I do think you will see the Congress, particularly the House, defend the integrity of its investigations. As you know, I was just appointed to the Intelligence Committee this week. I can guarantee you that the chairman is not going to permit witnesses to come before that committee and lie, and we are not going to stand idly by if someone has suborned perjury before a congressional committee. It's a red line.
Oof. Michael, you tweeted yesterday about the conversation the president had with senior leaders of the Republican Party. Are they now his firewall?
They will try to be, I think, and they have been up to this point. I think this revelation and Lord knows what else is out there to come puts an enormous amount of pressure on them to rethink that sort of huddled masses kind of approach they have around Donald Trump to protect him and to give him the kind of quarter he needs and wants from them so that he doesn't have to unleash his base on them. Yes. He doesn't have to tweet about them, because that's their central fear at the end of the day. That still flummoxes me. I have no idea why they worry about a tweet from Donald Trump, but they do. But
they do because of his popularity with Republicans. They don't like him.
That's true, but if you are the United States Senate, you're running statewide, and if you are one of those 22 U.S. senators, the majority of whom are going to be running in states that Hillary Clinton won in 2016, then your numbers game is very different than what we saw in 2018. And so the reality for those senators, and we've already seen now 11 senators break. Look at who they are, all right? Begin to understand that firewall has big holes in it. It's not just weak, it has got holes in it. And what McConnell's trying to do, who has been AOL or WAOL, AWOL, right? He's been out, he's like in the turtle shell. Undisclosed location. You know, he's got to come out and deal with this at some point. And that's where the pressure point's really going to come in this whole narrative for the president.
Jason, the president has been saying now for a few months he was a businessman as a candidate. He was allowed to do this. If he was, why is it, as we read this detailed report, did they go to such great lengths to hide it?
Right. That's what makes everyone curious. That's what brought the Mueller investigation to look into this. If you weren't doing anything wrong, why are you spending so much time lying? And if you weren't doing anything wrong, why did Michael Cohen feel the need to document so much of the communication between you? This is not only indicative of the president's sort of consistency in lying, but this actually includes, you know, everyone has always said the Achilles heel of this president will be Ivanka and Don Jr. Well, now we've got them, because if they've had emails with Cohen as well, talking about this deal, suggesting how he should behave one way or another, now the president and his children are in the direct sights of this investigation. So clearly you had to be doing something wrong. But I also think that the key is this. You know, when Giuliani says Cohen's a liar, all these other people saying he's a liar, Cohen has always proven over and over again he's got the documents, he's got the evidence, he's the last part and clue. It was me with Putin with the candlestick
after he lied.
Exactly. But now he has documentation and emails, and that's what makes this critical as opposed to him just running his mouth.
Then to that point, Glenn, Rudy Giuliani's response is immediately hanging this on Michael Cohen, who's a known liar. But when you go back to the article, Michael Cohen was sort of the last line. The amount of text messages, emails, and other information that Robert Mueller's team already had, Michael Cohen was sort of the final straw. So is this a wise defense for Rudy Giuliani?
You know, Steph, you'd make a great prosecutor, because the one thing that really jumped out at me from the BuzzFeed reporting was the way this information came about. Listen, I've met with 100 aspiring cooperating witnesses, and if one comes in and says, hey, somebody told me to lie, okay, then I have to go about trying to find evidence that corroborates that claim. That's not how this was being reported out. This is the investigation determining and learning that Michael Cohen had lied to Congress via, the reporting is, internal Trump Organization emails, text messages, and collateral interviews of others. And then they presented it to Michael Cohen. They said, we know what you did. And Michael Cohen apparently said, yes, I lied at the direction of Donald Trump. That is a whole different kind of a way an investigation develops, and it makes prosecution of that kind of charge very easy.
Congressman, can I ask you about the president's children? You've got Don Jr. and Ivanka written about in this report, Michael Cohen giving them detailed updates. They're intimately involved. And until this point, Ivanka Trump's attorney has said she played a minimal role. Same thing for Don Jr. Which is it? And from your perspective, are Ivanka and Don Jr. thoroughly entrenched in this business and possibly wrongdoing? I mean, 5 days ago, we're reading she could be the next World Bank head.
Look, we have absolutely.
I mean, honestly, though, she might be the next head of the World Bank. Oh, well, maybe she's heading to Moscow, where she was going to build a tower. Like, I don't even get it.
Right. Look, we have seen repeatedly that people have been minimizing their connections with the Russians and with this deal in particular, the Moscow project. But there really is an elephant in the room now, which is whether or not the President of the United States, while he was president, directed someone to lie to a congressional committee. That must be investigated. And if true, it's extremely serious. I do think there will be a shockwave around this that will include members of his family. But the core issue here, is whether the President of the United States suborned perjury before the United States Congress.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.